Um, you mentioned burnout.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's funny because I was reading about it recently. And I
Mm,
think a lot of people misunderstand it. And like I think
hmm.
same for you, like you couldn't even recognize initially that this
Yes.
is what burnout was. You thought it was something else. So
Yeah.
what was it that, if you can still remember, what was it that you learned about burnout from that therapy session and then afterwards?
That burnout is not about all you have to do, but it's about what you think about what you have to do. And so I feel like um, there are people whose schedules are quite full, but they are able to kind of walk through it, and they're able to balance. They have pretty good boundaries and things like that. But I found that the way you think about the things that you have to do, sometimes you cannot have that much to do. Like it's one email that you need to write, okay? But the way that you are thinking about them is adding so much stress and pressure. I have to say the perfect things. I have to figure out how to do this just absolutely perfectly. Your validation and worth and value as a person is on the line. And so all of those things can add a layer of suffering to something that's already challenging. So growing your skills in anything, in any area, is challenging. It's a challenging thing. Doing new things, doing something different, that is challenging in and of itself. But the way that we think about things adds a layer of stress. And when we experience this stress in our body and it's unattended to, it can manifest in as sickness. And a lot of people and scientific studies show that they say like almost 85, I'm going to use a modest number of like 85% of illnesses actually originate in your mind. And so burnout, even creative block, which is something that's huge amongst creatives. It's not about I don't know what to draw, I don't know what to write, but it's probably more so along the lines of you're already judging what it is. Like you are probably thinking, I don't think I could produce anything good. And so when you are in that frame of mind, it really adds this layer of resistance. If you did not care about whether you produced something that was good or not, then I think creative block would like not be a thing, because you just know like I can draw whatever or I can write whatever. It's okay. It's part of the process. But when you're like, it needs to be good, and your definition of good is quite limited, then that adds all this pressure. And so I think I really was putting pressure on myself to create good work. And that triggers perfectionism tendencies and all these different things. And so there was a lot of stress and pressure that I was adding with my own mind and the way that I was thinking about things, and that just makes it very difficult to work. It really just, if you don't, and also just not knowing how to take a break. Because with creative work, I think creatives are the ones who are most prone to suffer from burnout and not know it, like you're saying, because what we do is quite fun and we enjoy what we do, but we forget that we are not machines and robots, and that it's actually not healthy to do it all of the time. We feel like because we love it so much, then we should be doing it all the time. And so, what I did pick up from that was really, that's why I try and spend a lot of time with like my hobbies and doing different things as well, and having clear cutoff set off points of like, okay, Vanessa, we stopped working now. Because rest is actually integral to the creative process. That's where we make a lot of interesting connections. When, it's the typical thing, like you go out for a walk, you've been struggling with something for a really long time, and then you go for a walk, and then you're like, oh, or you're in the shower, you're washing the dishes, you're cleaning the house, and then the ideas just come. That's actually called the default mode network in your brain. And it's something that operates when you're doing a light, not intensive activity where your mind is free to wander, but it still requires a little bit of engagement. So when you're in that state, then your mind is able to make interesting connections. And when you pose a problem to your mind, then when you're in that like relaxed state, then it's able to make connections and then pop the answer up to you. And so that's where I learned that, when you're struggling with something, you can kind of just leave it for later and be like, okay, let your mind do its thing, go off and yeah, relax. But I think that's what I needed to learn about burnout, to really be mindful about what I'm thinking about the work that I need to do, and also incorporate better boundaries around my rest and just generally taking care of myself.